Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cornerstone Conversations, a little corner of the internet where we share in an open, authentic, and honest manner issues that matter. I am Damaris Aguayu. I am the founder of Kazimi, joined by Tazim Elkington. Hey, Taz.
Hey, Dama, how are you?
Good. And you?
Very well, thank you.
So can you just take a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners who may not already know you?
Sure. So, Tazim Elkington, aka the Indian Black Butterfly, leadership trainer, hypnotherapist, regression therapist, talk therapist, speaker, writer, evolutionary disruptor. You figure that one out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. Okay, so let's get right into it. Today we're talking about parenting, or as you like to call it, unparenting. So what do you mean by this term, unparenting?
So the reason why I felt that this is an important topic to discuss is because we have so many directions on parenting from our past, from our great-great-grandparents, great-grandparents, parents, and many of those aspects of parenting are no longer effective as we move forward. And when I say they're not effective, or they are not, they're not good for the kids today, is a couple of reasons. One, that today's children are different. The kids born in the last decade are different, just like kids born in the last couple of decades are different. So when I say different, what do I mean? What I mean is, we know about the indigo children that started to come in from the 70s and 80s. They actually started in the 60s, but they were very few and very far apart. And these indigo children are children that come with a different makeup, with a different composition. Their energetic field is actually a more indigo color, and they are here to change the way things have been going on this planet. And then in the last decade, we have more children coming in from the rainbow, star, crystalline composition. And people have to research these because we don't have enough time for me to go into it. And they're made of an even more different composition. And they cannot live in the old molds and the old ways of being imposed, of belief systems, traditions and cultures that are no longer going to be valid, actually. So that's one reason. The second reason is that parents today, I really have a lot of compassion and empathy for parents today. I'm glad I did my stuff many years ago and I made my messes, and I have been able to, make up for a lot of that. But for you young parents today, it's really tough because you've grown up with the old conditioning from your parents, and you know that conditioning doesn't work for your children, and yet you're grappling. So when I talk about unparenting, it means that it starts with the parents, so that the new children and the future generations are able to move in a different direction, to create a new way of living, a new way of seeing life, a new way of defining what life really means.
Okay, so where does it start in terms of today's parent? Where does that journey of unparenting start in practical terms?
So I would suggest to parents today is to really, really question and identify, question, examine, identify what are the aspects of their own lives that are messed up. Because if they don't examine themselves, they can't unparent. And so they have to examine the parts of themselves that are skewed, that are not working, that are causing more conflict, that are causing imbalance. We cannot expect today's children to operate and understand the way life worked 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where they had to be educated in a certain way. They had to follow certain rules and regulations. They had to follow traditions and cultures, and religion plays a big part as well. And then they had to become something based on what their parents wanted. That one is already dead. It's out of date. Your children are not going to become what you want them to become. Your children are going to be what they want to be and what role they came to play here on this planet. And so that's the first point I would suggest for parents.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any
So
others?
the expectations.
The
expectations.
Yeah.
The parents' expectations, you guys have to start examining that, because you didn't have children, or maybe you did have children, to meet your expectations. And so that's the first thing that you've got to cut cords with, because that is an old pattern and it's out of date.
Okay. So sitting where you are right now, you're a mother of 2 grown women who live in their own homes, who are also parents. And so in retrospect, they say hindsight is always 20/20. In retrospect, what are some of the mistakes you made as a parent that you can maybe advise some of us who are younger in our journeys, rather?
So I was very fortunate. Thank you for the question, Dama. I was very fortunate because I started my own journey over 3 decades ago. And so I was able to rectify a lot of that. And the interesting thing is I didn't put expectations on my children. So I would say I'm an indigo, and because I've done the work on myself, even though I was one of the first ones, because I've done all the checks and whatever, that I did not put expectations on my children. The 2 expectations I had, which again were unrealistic and which I've talked to them about. The 2 expectations I said to them were, do not harm yourself, and all I want is for you to be happy. And those 2 expectations were totally stupid. And I had to even pull those back.
Oh, really? Stupid. They sound quite reasonable.
Stupid. No, they were stupid. The reason they were stupid was because when I said don't harm yourself, I didn't want them to do anything that would be harmful to them, right? But then what I was saying to them is don't take risks, and don't try new things, and don't experiment, which was stupid. And so I had to pull that back, and then asking them to be happy. What kind of nonsense is that? Because first of all, happiness lasts 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds. So that's a complete misnomer. But how are you going to learn life unless you go through the whole range of emotions? True. So I had to pull that one back as well. So apart from that, I said, you decide to study what you want, decide to learn what you decide what, and career, it was never about career for me. It was never about achievement. It was never about success. This is not something I imposed on my children, okay? They may have been imposed on that imposed of that by their education systems and their peer systems and their world expectations. I did not impose that. And I would have loved if they were here for you to say, actually, you know, Mom, yeah, you didn't. And that made us even more confused because we had to choose for ourselves. And having to choose for themselves meant that they would have to face the consequences of that, which they have in their own way. And now as they come into their, my younger one is 39, coming into her 40s, and she's coming into herself. And my older one's coming to herself a couple of years ago. Even though we had, you know, we would bash heads on stuff, and I'd say, yeah, sometimes why don't you consider doing it this way, or consider, and I'd be told, you know what, Mom, I'm not you. And I'd say, respect that, accept that, and do it your way.
So
it's fine.
Let me cut you short a little bit here. So from what age do you remove yourself from this so-called responsibility that we have as a parent? So letting them be who they are. From what age should this start? Is it from when they're babies? Or is there certain timelines when you're like, okay, at this point, I need to be more hands-on, and then at this point, I'm less hands-on?
You've got to be hands-on as a parent all the time.
No, not hands. I mean, what I mean is that that aspect of being sort of helping them navigate their way through these things. That's the hands off that I mean. You understand that, right?
Yes. So it's never really hands off as a parent until they leave home and they get on with their lives. It's always hands on. But the hands off part, and it's not really hands off. It's not hands off. This is the whole unparenting part, where you engage in conversations with your children from the point where you ask them questions. You ask them what they want, why they want it, and what is their own understanding of what they want. This way you help them to start becoming independent in their own thinking, because you're helping them learn the process of choice, of why, of what. And that goes on until even now they're in their 40s, and yes, we still do that. So why do you want to do that? And what is your anticipation? And how do you feel this will pan out? Even though I say to them, don't get attached to outcomes, because outcomes never show up as you want them to. So it's a different kind of parenting where you really have to engage and get them to start knowing themselves from a very young age.
So that ties nicely into my next question. What is the role of a parent in a child's life?
So the role of the parent, and we have male and female roles that we are used to, and now that also has come crashing down, because the traditional father role and the traditional mother role doesn't exist anymore. Because previously the mother was the homemaker and the nurturer and the nourisher, and the father was the provider and the protector. Now in our new world, that's not true. And so both parents have to equally find a balanced platform where they are dealing with their children, and to make sure the important thing, very important thing, is because children learn to manipulate from a very young age. It's part of their way of self-protection. And they learn to manipulate because parents are never on the same page. So the first thing is to avoid your child learning how to manipulate is for parents to be on the same page, and that they are always talking to the children from the same place. So this is the first point, that parents must really be on the same page when they're talking to their children. Secondly, what is the role of the parent? The parent's role is to support, to encourage, to guide, to love, to protect, to provide, to nurture, to nourish.
Yeah, I think we get our lines mixed up when I think many parents sort of project who they are on their parents or on their children. And they want to create this little mini-me's, people who will be compliant, people who will, do as they're told, and people who will actually make the parent look great, appear to be successful. So we subconsciously live vicariously through our children. Yeah. So I think in that sense, then we end up kind of not letting the children be who they are, but be who we want them to be, or who we would want to be ourselves.
So mostly parents, what you've just said is absolutely true, Dama. And mostly parents want their unexpected needs and wants to show up in their children. So whatever they didn't accomplish and whatever they didn't achieve and whatever they didn't reach, they want to impose that on their children. It's so terrible. It's so terrible. And it's terrible not because parents are bad, or I mean, that's not the point. It's terrible because we don't understand the consequences of this kind of behavior. You know, I want you to get a master's and a PhD, and I want you to show the world because maybe I didn't get it. And maybe because, and I want you to be like this, and I want you to be like that. It is really, really deteriorating for a child's soul. Yeah. And so when we stop putting our unmet expectations that we had on our children, we start a different road. Because of today, their way of life is going to be so different. The education systems are going to crash. This I can already tell you. I may not be here to see it, you will. All right? And these education systems, with the careers linked to them, over 50% of those careers are not going to exist in the next decade or two. So that whole educational component is going to crash. Already we can see it in, where is it? In Finland, in Sweden, they're already changing their systems, okay? And this will roll out in the world. If we look at it, people are now looking at how to get back to the basics of life. With COVID in the last year and a half, or whatever, however long it's been, people have had no choice but to get back to the basics of life. You see a lot of people that lost jobs in the city have gone back to farming, have gone back to the land, have gone back to what is really important and what really matters. And putting these children in front of a screen 5 days a week for 7 hours is excruciatingly painful for them. Excruciatingly. And I have so much, my heart goes out to them, because it's reducing them completely. So we will see things crashing of the past. Systems of the past are already crashing and will crash further. So this is why we've got to be mindful, and we've got to support them. And things like artists, stuff like artists and being musical and being more nature oriented and more experiential in connection with the earth is what's going to start happening. And it already has. It already has. And healing is going to be one of the biggest components that's going to move this entire generation as they heal their wounds and their wounds of their ancestors and their past into I've got goosebumps, into a completely different place.
Yeah. I was smiling because when you were talking about putting kids in front of screens being excruciatingly painful, my daughter was looking at me and smiling and nodding her head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like we just accept systems the way they are, and yeah, we're part of the system. So the question I would ask you then is, how does one break away from a system that is working, quote unquote? You know, you can't not take your child to school. Um,
Why not?
because because
Why not? I'm so proud of my daughter Natasha. You guys haven't met yet. You will. She refused.
what
She's
age?
fortunate. She's fortunate. That's what I was just going to say. That her children are young. She's got two boys, 5 and 7, and she said she's just not. She's not going to put them through it.
So what education are they getting?
So she
Formal
found a home
education.
tutor. She found a home tutor who comes home 4 days a week, and he's tutoring them.
So it is still it's just a different variation of the education system, right?
It's completely different because they have playtime, they have garden time, they have chicken time, cuckoo time, they have rabbit time, they have plant time. It's a completely different portfolio she's created.
And what about socialization? Like spending time with other people, other kids? How does that work?
So she's very fortunate. She's on a compound where they have a gang of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And because, she grew up the way she did, where our home used to be an open house. I've changed a lot since then. My home is not an open home
Clearly.
anymore. But when they were growing up, they could always bring their friends home. And this is how they grew up. And I always preferred that they brought their friends home instead of them going out. So my home was always filled with children. And so she's like this, and children are always streaming in and out, and they play on the compound. So in fact, they've been more social than ever before because they've had more hours.
Okay, yeah, this is a deep topic. It feels like we need so much time to discuss it, but we're running out of time. So let me ask you the last question. Is parenting hard?
I am, like I said, my heart goes out to you guys. Parenting is one of the toughest jobs anyone decides to do. And when I say it's the toughest job, I know because I've been through it. And now I'm grandparenting, which is a completely different ballgame. And it's I don't have the responsibility, the direct responsibility attached to it. So I can be silly, I can be funny. The other day I had a shower and I had the towel and the towel dropped and my grandson says, stop it, tum. And I said, okay, sorry. So coming back to your question, parenting is such a tough job that even your 10-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour job is not as tough as parenting. But what people have done is we take parenting so much for granted on the basis that we think we pop out one kid, we pop out another kid, and then they'll grow. And a lot of parents allow, the nannies to bring up the children, allow the children to grow by themselves. They are not completely engaged because their priorities are not right. And they think that just providing for them and working and all of that is more important. It is not. We have to go back to our parenting, or not go back. We never go back because we can't go back. We have to now consider a new way of parenting where we engage with our children from a different point, and that becomes the priority, not your job. Your job is important because you have to provide, yes, but your parenting is more important because you are responsible for the next generation to come. So and then you are, as a parent, between a rock and a hard place because you don't know how to do it. And you're unlearning and relearning and unparenting, and you're in a confusion as well. So it is crucial that it starts becoming a priority for parents.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I agree with every point that you've said. It's a tough journey. I think it's also a journey of self-discovery for yourself. As you parent, you also discover a lot about who you are as a person. So it's rewarding in that sense as well, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So to finish, let me give this last cue. For a parent to start unparenting, my suggestion would be for you to start unparenting whatever was imposed on you, for one thing, and start self-parenting yourself. And that'll be the first step towards parenting differently for your children.
Just explain self-parenting again. Self-parenting.
Self-parenting means however you were parented had so many gaps and so many issues and so many confused beliefs in it, and all the stuff that you don't want to hand over to your children, that you've got to start literally being your own parent first, which means unparenting yourself. So start the self-parenting process of being your own mother and your own father from a different point in order to start being a different parent for your children.
Wow. That's powerful. We're out of time, but thank you.
Okay.
That was really, really insightful for me as a young parent as well. And thank you for your time. Thank you again for watching another episode of Cornerstone Conversations. We'll be back next week with more of the same. And if you like what you see, please subscribe to our page and tell your friends. Thank you and see you soon. Bye. Bye, Tazim.
Bye. See you, Dama. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.